Good evening, or good afternoon, I should say, and welcome to this special edition of the Demon Land podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me back this week is Grapeviney. Good afternoon, Grapeviney.
Good afternoon, Andy, and good afternoon, Demon Land. We need to be careful. Melbourne players and Melbourne people are getting struck down every few minutes at the moment. So you and I, we might end up suffering serious injuries doing this broadcast the way things are going at the moment. So be careful.
Yeah, they seem to be falling like flies at the moment, and it's very disappointing. Because we probably haven't felt the effects of the injuries we've had because the players have just been sort of playing like a team possessed, and I think after a consecutive 6-day breaks, these injuries are starting to take their toll, and it's starting to really have a noticeable effect.
I think we saw all that last night, didn't we? The players looked flat from the beginning. They looked tired, basically. We didn't have the same run and spread and desperation that we've had all year. And, unfortunately, it looks like we've picked up another couple of injuries along the way, and again to good players. It all sort of it all came to bear last night, didn't it?
Yeah, I must say, whenever we lose, I tend to sort of live under a rock for a few days. I try to avoid anything to do with football. Melbourne, I don't know, maybe that's just me being childish, probably. But what's the extent of our injuries so far? Obviously, Viney went off, and I see it could be a foot injury, but do we know anything more about it?
Well, they're saying it's the, and forgive me, I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, the plantar fascia or something like that in the foot. Apparently he's been carrying it for a while.
Okay.
But has obviously done something more to it. Last night he's gone for scans today. He's gone for scans already, and apparently the results will be available later today. But Goodwin didn't sound particularly positive about it in the post-match presser, so I'd be very surprised if we see him back anytime soon. And I didn't see this, but quite a few Demonlanders did see it. Apparently Dom Tyson hurt his knee very late in the game, I think in the dying minutes, and was limping noticeably. And I think there was a report on Fox Sports this morning that he was so sore he couldn't even drive his car today. So
wow.
That doesn't sound good. We know Dom's had knee injuries in the past, so I don't know whether it's the same knee or a different. This is something different altogether. But, we can't afford to lose any midfielders at the moment, and Dom was probably improving over the past few weeks, so coming at a terrible time, and we are the walking wounded, unfortunately, and it's our best players have been struck down, unfortunately.
Well, not just that. Max didn't look 100%
No.
on the night. He spent a lot of time on the bench. There's something obviously going on there.
Yep. I mean, his game time, he would have spent he couldn't have spent more than 60 or maximum 70% of time out on the ground. He really spent a lot of time on the bench, and as you say, when he was out there, he struggled. He didn't have the same physical presence that he does in ruck contests and in marking contests. He dropped a lot of marks. Now, some of that is he was out for a long time, so it's going to take him a bit of time to get back into it properly. But he was killed over a couple of times. I don't know whether the Swans tried to get into him. I think he had strapping perhaps elsewhere other than his hamstring, so I'm not sure what the issue is with Max, but it's certainly not the Max that we know and have come to see in the past couple of years. So, even though he was out there, his output was well done. well down. Sorry.
Yeah. And prior to the game, there was whispers that Jayden Hunt might not be right and that he might be replaced in the team. Obviously, he did line up, but he definitely didn't have the same impact that he usually does. I can see he's had 7 disposals, and perhaps there's something more there as well.
Yep, could be right. Very quiet night. Obviously, they used him forward early, probably as sort of a replacement, if you like, for Jeffy not being there, hoping that his speed could add some forward pressure, but that didn't really work at all, did it?
No.
And he ended up back at half-back after half-time, but with very little effect, unfortunately.
Yeah, we really lacked something up forward. Obviously, we missed Jesse, we missed Jack Watts. Not sure if having those guys in the team would have changed anything, even Jeffy in the team. I think the problem started in the middle and around the ground. We just couldn't get our hands on the ball first, and when we did, we were coughing it up. We were, they were fumbling. Kicks were going. There were errant kicks. No one was hitting targets. And it
was one of those. Yeah, sorry.
It wasn't a wet night either. Sydney had no problems moving the ball. They were pinpoint. They were marking everything. Yep. So,
Yeah, it was one of those nights, wasn't it, where nothing seemed to go right. As you say, there was a whole host of turnovers, particularly in that first half. We just really coughed it up every time we touched it. Drop marks the entire night. Nobody could hold on to anything. And even the ball didn't bounce our way. The umpiring wasn't great. Not that it was a reason for the loss.
No,
but,
it wasn't the reason.
Nothing seemed to go our way, except for that ability to kick those 4 goals in the first quarter, which was completely against the run of the play. So, aside from that patch where we sort of got 4 goals from nowhere, absolutely nothing went right on the night.
No, we were absolutely smashed. Do we talk about the Bugg incident? I suppose we have to talk about that. I didn't like it.
It was disgraceful.
Yeah.
It's nothing short of disgraceful. You can't do that in the modern game. That kind of act was considered a disgraceful dog act even back in the 80s, when those things were a lot more common. But there's no excuses. He'll get a minimum 6, quite possibly more. And, I'm annoyed because he had a terrible night.
Yeah.
That may well have been due to the fact that his head was out of the game after that incident. But, we talked about the social media business a few weeks ago against the Dogs, and, it's one thing to be a smart ass and to be a pest, and to be a pain in the backside to opposition, but, gee, you'd want to be able to back it up on the field, and Bugg just isn't good enough as a player to be able to do that. At his best, he's a good ordinary player, and last night he was extremely ordinary. 6 touches, and I wouldn't be surprised if all 6 of them were clangers. He was miserable, basically.
Yeah, I don't mind, being a pest, but when you become a thug, that's where I draw the line. I don't mind getting under the skin of opposition players and the opposition supporters, but when you resort to that, it's not on.
Yeah, and Goodwood. Sorry,
it seems that the club's come out on the front foot and sort of made him sort of apologise and say that he'll cop whatever is given to him. So I guess that's a plus. But and
Goodwood made the right call that we want to be a tough, aggressive, unsociable side. But that's Buggy went well over that line last night, and as Goody said, that's not what the club is about. That's not the way we want to do it, and that's not being tough. That's the opposite of tough. That's cowardly. So we don't know what happened before that, what set him off, but there's no excuses. And he'll spend a hefty time on the sidelines. Might not see him again this year.
Yeah.
You know, he'll have to come back through Casey and, who knows. Very disappointing, though.
Adam 1.0, which is at Demon Blog on Twitter, he noted before the game, he said that our last 3 games against the Swans, we'd scored 38, 50 and 31, and our average score over the last 5 games had been 48.2 points. And we barely improved that last night with 50. So what is the Swans just have our measure, and we just can't score against them.
Yeah, Whispering Jack made that point to me during the game actually last night. But look, we didn't have a forward line. Peterson didn't have a great night. No. Also couldn't really clunk his marks.
Yeah.
But often when we were streaming forward, I lost count of the number of times we had to basically stop in the middle of the ground because there was just nothing forward. Tommy Mack, to his credit, played a really good game again and was able to provide a target on a few occasions. But, there was nothing there. There was no one there. So, you know, again, we saw Bugg sort of being the target on occasions, and you know, virtually every time we went forward, we were outmanned by 3, 4 or 5 players. So we didn't look like scoring at all during the night. And as I say, those 4 goals in the first quarter seemed to sort of come from nowhere. You know, Petracca's was from 70 metres out, so we didn't even get an inside 50 from that one. So we just didn't look like scoring all night.
Yeah, and we've got a bunch of sort of those fringe players who you know Stretch, Neil Bullen, Harms, and none of them sort of did much on the night. They
all had poor games.
Harms, and look, at a critical stage, missed an easy goal, which probably cost us. And I think you might be breaking up there. I'm not sure. Can you hear me? I might just hang up. Grapevine, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I was losing you for a second there. I will just mention that Harms, you know, had a critical shot at goal where he could have put us within 10 points, I think, at one stage, missed that, and then we never looked like being in the contest after that.
Yeah, it's tempting to think of that as sort of the game changer because, as you say, it would have brought us to within 2 kicks. And, look, it was an absolute doozy. He was, 20 metres out, pretty much no angle. Yeah. His goal kicking is terrible at the best of times. He never looks confident. But look, I think even though, you know, you can sort of look at that and think, well, we might have been able to get a run on had he kicked that. We didn't look at all night. So I don't know whether that really was as critical as I made it out to be on the night when you and I discussing it just after it happened. But I think Nasher made a very good point in the post-match thread that you can have 1 or 2 of A and B and Harms and Stretch and Bugg in the team, but when you've got all of them in there for a number of weeks consecutively, which is what's happened given the injuries, it's going to fall apart at some time. And it fell apart last night because, as you say, none of those players had any impact on the game at all. And I think one player I did want to discuss, you know, we've talked about Harms and Neil Bullen in particular quite a bit and discussed their limitations as players and their sort of perhaps that their disposal and composure perhaps isn't up to the standard, but one player whose progress, who we perhaps rated a bit higher, but whose progress seems to have really stalled this year is Billy Stretch. And he progress stalled or perhaps even gone backwards. He just hasn't had a good game this year, and last night was a shocker for him. Just the 9 touches and really no influence at all. What do you reckon is the issue with Billy?
I couldn't tell you what the issue is, but I think if we had a full complement of players available, I don't think he'd be making the cut at the moment. No, I'm sure he plays well down at Casey, as do obviously a lot of the guys that we've got down at Casey. I think there's a big gap between the VFL footy and the AFL footy, and for some of these guys, they can play the house down there, but then once they get into the big leagues, they sort of fall over.
But Stretch has been a lot better than that at AFL level. His first 2 years were pretty good. I wasn't as bullish about him early as others were, but I think he then sort of has shown sort of steady improvement. But he's not having a good season. Well,
I think, as you said, some of these guys are, as Nash pointed out, some of these guys are handy, bit players. When you've got a full complement to make up the last couple of positions on the field, and perhaps rotate these guys in and out of the team. But when you've got injuries to key players, and we're going to have key players out for extended period now, they're not going to cut the mustard. These guys aren't going to be the ones that are going to get us into the finals and make
they can play a role to fill in when someone's injured, and
but they're not
do that for a week or 2 weeks or even 3. But you can't be relying on those guys to get you over the line. Basically, it's not going to happen.
So I really believe that that's the case. That these guys are good support things, but they're not the guys to carry the team.
Mitch White is rightly copping a bit of heat today. He had a nightmare of a game. He would admit that, I'm sure, but I think people are being a little bit harsh. He hasn't played in the ones for a long time. It was his first game back. Yes, it was a shocker. Everything he touched turned to absolute dust. But to expect a player to just come in from the twos and to play, perfect polished football first game up is asking a bit much. And, to pretend that the loss is somehow down to White and Wagner as well.
Well, I was going to include Wagner there.
Who also had a shocker. I think that's a bit harsh.
Yeah, look, if they'd come in the Bulldogs game, well, would be probably singing their praises. Everyone had a shocker last night from the get-go. So, I don't think you can blame those two guys. I mean, Wagner had a terrible game. None of his... almost every kick went wayward. I can't tell you can't count the amount of times he dropped the ball from a pretty easy mark with no pressure. So you've got to probably chalk it down to a bad game, because I like
them
Wagner.
had nightmares.
Yeah. So we are no longer the media's darling. They're all talking us up last week. Even as far as yesterday, David King had written an article about, basically telling the Melbourne supporters to stop being whingers about their team.
I bet he's the first to say that we're not premiership contenders now, even though I think he was one of the ones that said we were during the week.
Well, the same publication that he works for, the Herald Sun, wrote an article saying, put the premiership talk on hold. Well, no one was talking premierships except the Herald Sun last week. So how about they put the premiership talk on hold? We're the ones who suffer MFCSS, and we were rightly sceptical. I don't, I think it's nonsense that we're anywhere near premiership material yet, particularly with the injuries. I know we've said it every week. At our best, with pretty much a full complement, we can beat anyone, even if you take a couple of those players out. But, with the mounting injury toll, I think it's way too early to be starting to sing our praises. And let's just hope we can win enough to get into contention come September.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, isn't it? Because if we do make it, then you'd presume that most of the players that are out will be back by then, and will hopefully have enough footy under their belts to be playing well. But yep, it's finals is no sure thing, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, Jones probably still another 4-5 weeks away.
Yep.
Watts has said, I think pre-game, that he's probably not going to even play next week. So who knows how far off he is? The hammy could be a lot worse than first thought. He pulled up sore at training the other day, so he could be further away. We've got Hogan. Well, we don't even know if he's going to be back this week. He's training.
No, Goodwin said possibly, but not definitely.
Yeah. Salem, obviously he's only in the first week of his injury. He's still out. We have no idea with Garlett how far off he is. The hammy's not going to be a 1 weeker, so yeah.
Yeah, again, Goodwin was pretty sort of circumspect about all that, so it's hard to know with any of them really. And of course we don't know the extent of Jack's injury, but
so we've got Jack and Dommy Tyson out now, so it's there's a lot of positions up for grabs, and I think we're no certainty against Carlton this week.
No. Look, hopefully I've got a 9-day break, so hopefully the rest will do those that are still standing a world of good. So, if I thought the effort was there last night, I just think we didn't have the energy to do it.
Yeah.
So look, hopefully the rest will do the players good, and as long as they bring that effort and intensity, then and look, we should be able to win. So look, let's see how we go. But no, we know that no game 2017 is a certainty. So we'll see how we go.
No, I haven't ventured into the game day or the post match thread. So are the natives restless? Is the sky falling?
No, it was pretty reasonable, the reaction. Most people see it for what it is. It was just a bridge too far last night. RJ summed it up best for me when he said, "This is the loss I was expecting to have, but convinced myself that we might not."
Yeah.
I was a bit the same. I went in thinking, gee, it's unlikely, injuries to close to a quarter of the side, 4 games in 18 days against a Swans side that, plays really sort of high intensity, high pressure footy. So most people sort of understood that it was going to happen sooner or later. We haven't put in a stinker all year, and this was the closest thing we've had to a stinker. And even on that front, it wasn't that bad. So most people saw it for what it was and were pretty reasonable. There were the usual hotheads that couldn't see it for what it was, and somebody suggested that our recruiting and development had been terrible. I think there was a new poster, someone who I didn't recognise. So, I think that person might have just been venting, as we often see.
Yeah.
That's the depth issues thread that's up there on the board. So
I did see that thread, and it's quite laughable because it's one thing. If you have a full team and that happens, if we had pretty much a full complement, we had Jones, Watts, Hogan, Salem, and Viney on the field for the whole match, and then that happens. you would be a little bit more concerned. I don't think you'd be blaming the recruiting for it, but there'd be a couple of extra concerns. But considering we have those injuries, I don't think you can start blaming the coaching staff or the recruiting staff.
Well, I think we all know that the recruiting and the development in the past few years has been superb. So,
well, what a difference!
That was just nonsense. That comment, I thought.
What a difference a couple of hours, 12 hours can make, because I started a post based on an article on afl.com.au applauding the efforts of the recruiting manager. I think it was called Taylor's Greatest Hits, and just sort of listed all the sort of smokies he's pulled out of his pocket, and it's been pretty impressive. But you even go through that list, and we've got injuries even in that list to players. So I don't think you can blame
that list. That list was a lot more. Was a lot closer to the pen than the depth issues thread, that's for sure. And somebody had made a similar thread earlier in the week, I think, about the number of players that we've brought in from other clubs in the past few years, and it's the recruiting has just been superb. So that was pretty silly, I thought.
Yeah, I'll put it down to, it's either someone who's just come on to Demonland to vent, as we all need to do, but it also sometimes can be, another poster who didn't want to come on and vent as themselves and perhaps started a new account. That certainly has happened in the past, but, they didn't want to tarnish their good name on the site, so started up a new account, but innocent until proven guilty. But that list of Taylor's greatest hits, Jayden Hunt, number 53, number 57, Neil Bullen at 40, Billy Stretch at 42, Oscar McDonald 53, James Harm was rookie draft number 2, Vanderberg was rookie draft number 2, Mitch White, rookie draft 20. Mitch Hannon, third rounder at 46. Josh Wagner, rookie draft as well, number 6. Joel Smith, rookie draft, and Tim Smith, also rookie draft. So there's some good names on there, guys that have played some good footy for us, but also got quite a few injuries on that list.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think you can blame our recruiting whatsoever. So we go in next week without a captain. Your thoughts on who should be given the gig?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? I see someone has started a thread on it. Well, I guess, Jordan Lewis is experienced. Is he, he's probably captain material.
Do you give it to someone like Lewis, who's been at the club for 5 minutes? Obviously he's got the experience, but or do you give it to someone who's been around a bit longer?
Tommy McDonald, perhaps. He's spending time in the ruck. Perhaps it's Max. I don't know. Is it a big? I don't think it's.
It's the guy who
big issue. Is it? It's
guy who tosses the coin and.
Tosses the coin. That's right. Anyone can give the little speech in the huddle too. So it's the acts that stand up on the field that count. So
who is in our leadership group officially?
I think Max is. I think Tommy is. Yep. I think Lewis is.
Oh, Lewis. Yeah, I think he was.
And Viney and Jones. I think that might be it.
Yeah, you would think it's either Tommy or Max. But perhaps Jordan Lewis. I might put that poll onto the front page of the website and see if we cannot get a few more votes before the end of the program. And
Demons 11 has suggested in that thread Nev Jetta. I think Nev might be in the is Nev in the leadership group? No, I don't think so. Nev would probably do a good job with it too. So
yeah, well, it's up for grabs. Well,
is it cursed? Should we put a poor player in there so that we don't lose another one of our best?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think think the club would go for that line.
Now,
of
have you
thinking.
seen? There's talk that Kent, Kennedy, Harris, and Kennedy have fallen foul of the club. That they're on punishment at the moment. That they turned up to a Casey recovery session in less than good shape.
That would. That might
and that they're being punished at the moment, and that's why Dion Johnston was one of the emergencies last night, and neither of those three players were, even though you'd think all three should or would be ahead of Johnston to replace Garlett in that small forwards role.
Well, you know what? It's probably not. I mean, we have absolutely no idea of the validity of that, but I mean, if you have a look at who was in contention for that spot and who actually was the emergencies last night, it stands to reason that that's not such a huge leap to make, that there is something going on there. Having said that, we can't confirm nor deny that is the case.
But Dion Johnston hasn't been setting the world on fire in the twos, whereas Kennedy Harris is obviously in the last few weeks anyway been in really good form. So
maybe you might have something.
Look,
there.
I would have preferred Kent in the team last night. I wonder whether Goodwin erred at the selection table in bringing in White and Wagner, and perhaps not bringing in even Wiedemann and Kent or one of the other smalls.
Yeah, Whispering Jack was saying last night that he thought they should have made a lot more changes considering the 6-day break issues we've had. In past weeks I've been saying, I've thought prior to the games that Goodwin has made mistakes at the selection table, but every week it's proved me wrong. And again, this week I thought the same thing. I thought, well, why didn't we bring in a key forward? Why didn't we bring in a couple of crummers in the forward line? But I said this week, I'm trusting the captain in Goodwin I trust. And, all right, I don't think it worked out this week, but that's 1 week out of the last couple.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll give him a pass.
I've queried a few of the selections, but he's pretty much nailed it most of the year. So,
and look, I think Wiedemann might not have come in because had Max played the majority of the ruck, we would have had two guys who could have stayed down forward for longer periods. But as it turns out, Max spent a lot of time on the bench, so Tommy Mack had to go in the ruck, or Peterson had to go in the ruck, and the ball wasn't getting into the forward line anyway, so it could have all been a moot point. Maybe Wiedemann would have spent the time down back because that's where the ball was.
Now, you and I discussed last night that we might go back and edit the past month's podcasts to erase all those times you and I said Tommy Mack wasn't a forward, but hasn't he really grown as a player in the past month? Playing forward, playing in the ruck. He's got all these new strings to his bow, and he's, talk about leadership, he's really stood up to the test and just been absolutely fantastic. So credit to him, really strong marking. His goal kicking's been good. So, well done, Tommy Mack.
In fairness to us, while we were saying we didn't think that Tommy Mack was a forward, he was also saying that he's not a forward. So
that's right.
So
that's quite right.
I don't think we can be blamed for just agreeing with him. But yeah, going back, you weren't here to discuss the Eagles game last week, but that was a fantastic effort up forward. It's been a while. We don't often see someone, we haven't seen in a long time someone kick 5 goals for us in a game. So, that was a great effort.
Yeah,
and
he basically kicked a third of the score. So,
And I saw prior to the game he was having shots at goal, and he really does have such an awkward, he doesn't have a natural, I said to you on the night, his style isn't natural. It's as if he's just picked up the game and he's learnt to play. He's got such an awkward style, but his kicking for goal is really straight, actually, in the last couple of weeks. So he's obviously been, whilst it doesn't look pretty, he kicked a lovely goal from 45 out or 40 out on a tiny bit of an angle, but yeah, beautiful kick for goal at the moment.
His brother's going well too, isn't he?
He took quite a few good marks. His decision-making's improving. He's getting a bit more confidence. And look, the times that he was on Buddy, and, Buddy's probably one of the best forwards in the league. So, and it wasn't always him, on Reed, or, they were sort of moving the guys around. So
no, I thought he played a really good game.
Yeah.
So, and I thought generally the defence played really well, even though, Sydney ultimately had a lot of shots on goal.
Yeah.
Nev, apart from that one glaring error, which
he should have marked it
where he should have marked instead of punching. Was superb. So Omac too, and Frost
and Hibberd as well, running off half back.
Yeah, Hibberd, as usual, was in the top 2 or 3. So,
Hibberd's probably been in the top 3 best players all year for us. You would think he's going to be there at the end of the, end of the top end of the best and fairest.
It was, as I said, was in the top 2 or 3 last night. Clary had probably his quietest game for the year. And a bit disappointing from some of the hotheads to see, he couldn't handle the publicity of what happened last week. Well, fair dinkum, you got a player that's basically still in diapers.
He's 19, yeah.
And, he's played barely 20 games. He's allowed to have a quiet one every now and then.
Well, particularly when the rest of the team had a quiet one. I don't think you can lay the blame at one's feet.
Yeah, and I'd expect Clary to carry you every week is just ridiculous at his age. So, I think, as a number of people said in the post-match thread, we're just got to move on from this one as quickly as we can. It's not one to dwell on, and it's certainly not one to slash your wrists over.
No, in particular, every game that we've lost this year, we've pretty much been in contention. Probably with the exception of this one, but you even got the feeling that even in the last quarter, when we kicked the first goal and then Harms did Harm?
No, that was
the third quarter.
That was the third.
But there were times we thought, well, if things start clicking, but I guess you can probably say that about any team in any game. But there was certain times I thought, just get a run on, things can happen, but it just didn't happen.
We did kick the first goal of the last, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it came back to, I think we had it was 23 points at one stage. So early in the last. So it was, it wasn't out of our grasp.
Yeah.
And look, I think the scoreline flattered us in the end.
Yeah, it did, considering
and I said to Whispering Jack, when it went back out to 28 points, I said, if it stays at 28, I'll be very happy.
Yeah.
So to only go down by 35 was a good effort, and well done to the boys because they fought it out, even though they were absolutely rooted. And it could have easily blown out to
could have been 10 goals
loss, and that would have smashed our percentage.
Yeah.
So, all things considered, it was as good a loss as a loss can be when you lose by 6 goals.
We minimise the damage. There could have been to our percentage. I think we've now got 110. We were at 114. So considering not too bad, and we've got to pick ourselves up, and we've got a game coming up this week that we can't afford to drop, because it would have been a game we would have penciled in for a win. Carlton probably have nothing to lose at the moment. They're just playing their young kids, and with a full team, obviously we're a much better team. But maybe with our injuries, sort of pegs the two teams, makes them a bit closer. But we don't want to drop this one.
Well, you can't take anything for granted this year, unfortunately. So, a lot of it's just going to depend how well we can recover and get a bit of run back in our legs, and hopefully get if we could just bring in Jeffy and Jesse, then that would go a long way.
I got a feeling Jeffy isn't going to be back too soon. It's hamstring. Was he not playing as a precaution? Was it? Oh, we don't know the extent of it.
We just don't know.
We don't know. It's the same with Wattsy. We thought he'd be back after a week, and
and apparently there were mixed reports going around last night and even today as to whether some people are saying he exacerbated a training during the week and that it's worse than what we first thought, but others were saying that he said that he's a chance for next week. So I don't know what to believe on that. I suppose we'll find out during the week at some point. But, fingers crossed for Jack Viney, fingers crossed for Dom Tyson, and, I've got my concerns about Maxi as well, to be honest.
Yeah, there's got to be something with Maxi. For him to spend that much time on, that much time off the ground.
And even there were times he was coming on and going to the forward line, so they were sort of keeping him out of the ruck. So it was sort of max at about 20% of his usual capacity, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. I'm just trying to find. There was an interview with Jack Watts, which I can't find on Twitter at the moment. He was interviewed before the game, and I think that's where they got some of the reports straight from the horse's mouth that he might not play next week. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
Yep.
I guess it's sort of pointless for us to talk about who potential changes this week, because we don't know whether Jesse's back. If Jesse's not back, would you put Wiedemann in? Would you keep going with Peterson, McDonald?
I'd be very tempted to play Peterson.
Wiedemann.
To play Wiedemann, yeah.
And then I guess it's pointless to talk about small forwards, because if the story you alluded to before in regards to the other three small, the rest of our mosquito fleet, if they're on the outs with the coaching staff, I don't think they're going to be the ones to sort of fill the Jeffy void. So yeah, it's sort of like we're
he's
in
a
limbo.
hard man to replace. Jaden couldn't do it. That's not his
Well, I
role.
think there was something with Jaden as well. I think he was carrying something. He didn't look to be himself.
No, look, and he's has tapered off a little bit in the past month, probably. Haven't seen sort of the same. Haven't seen the same Jaden in the past few weeks that we've seen earlier. But, again, talking about young kids, so you can't expect them to be sensational week in, week out.
Well, last year we sort of tapered off towards the end of the year, and it was sort of roundly blamed on the fact that we've got such a young, inexperienced and tired team. Is this what we've got to look forward to in the coming weeks?
Yeah, well, we'll find out, won't we? As we say, 9-day break, so hopefully get a bit of run back in the legs. But we were asking earlier in the season, Clayton Oliver's on fire, but is he going to run out of gas at some point? He might. So we're getting, it's only round 14, but we're getting on, and these players have, particularly for the past month, have played some really relentless, uncompromising football where they've left nothing out on the field. So it's not surprising to see that some of them are out of gas.
Oh well, I'm off on holidays tomorrow, taking a well-earned break, off to some warmer weather, and I'll have to catch the next game. I think I'm going to go you didn't go down the AFL overseas app route. I believe you watched the West Coast game from a bar, somewhere.
Well, yeah, I was in Bali, so there's footy everywhere in Bali.
Yeah, well,
every second bar has got the footy showing, and it's such a big thing there. They've got, when you go to the bars, they show you the program for the weekend of the matches that are going to be on.
Did you have to convince someone to change the channel, or were they showing the Melbourne Eagles game?
No, they've got multiple screens. So
Yep.
there were the two games going on last week. There was the North Bulldogs game going on, so both games were playing. But the bar I was in only had Melbourne supporters, actually. So there were about half a dozen of us cheering for the red and blue, and it was a great win and to celebrate it overseas. But that's Bali. You're virtually in Australia, so no issues where I was.
Did you mentioned there was an Eagle supporter there that didn't dampen the day?
Well, it nearly did, because he came in late. He came in sort of late, or he came in sort of early in the last quarter, and started mouthing off, but disappeared pretty quickly at the end. So he wasn't around for too long, thankfully.
So you didn't get into any fights?
No, I didn't get into any fights. I'm sure it'd be very easy to do that in Kuta. There's more than enough people sinking more than enough booze there that things can kick off pretty quickly, I'd imagine.
Well, I'm off to Fiji, so I'm not sure what the bar situation is with showing AFL footy. I know there is the Australia Plus network, which does show games, but whether the Demons Carlton game will be on, so I think I might take the hit and pay $14 for the app.
Is there another game on at the same time? Do you know?
Good question. Let's go.
Because the Australia network shows.
Yeah, they show one of them. There's a 1:10 game. I can't see the fixture on what their schedule yet, because it's too far away, being Sunday. They only have a week in advance. But we've got North Melbourne, Fremantle at Etihad Stadium at 1:10. Our game's at 3:20 at the G, and there is a 4:40 West Coast Port Adelaide game at Domain.
I'd be betting that the two other games are the ones that they'll show.
We're in the middle.
We're stuck in the middle, unfortunately.
So they'll show the first one and show the next one, I think.
Yeah.
I'll be getting that at the app. And
looks like you'll be getting the pass, yep.
Yeah, so I'll be doing that. And then our plan is to, that Wednesday, obviously this Wednesday, because we're doing the show now, there will be no show live show on Wednesday night. I'll post this probably Monday or Tuesday, just so that the last week's show gets a bit more of a run on the top of the website. We'll post this in a couple of days, and then next Wednesday after the game, internet coverage, depending on the how good the internet is where I am, we'll probably do the first ever podcast live from the Pacific Ocean in Fiji. So that's got to be a first.
Well, that'll be a first. So. That's something to celebrate. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what else is there. We didn't have a running sheet this week because
No, well, I think we were sort of going to keep it pretty short and sweet. So,
so unless there's anything else you can think of that popped up during the week on Demonland.
No, that'll be about it for me. We've discussed Tommy Bugg's
how
cowardly hit.
How many weeks do you reckon they'll give him?
I'm going to say 7.
7. That's.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm going to say 6.
Yeah, I think 6. I don't think he'll get let off lightly, considering what happened last week with the Hawley thing and giving him 2 and then going, the whole. They just probably want to give him 6. I think they know Melbourne are not going to contest it. That sounds like they won't. Not that they've said anything, but considering that they've come out and sort of,
Well, what's to contest?
Yeah, that's right. So I think they're gonna make an example of it, and yeah, he'll get the book thrown at him, and probably rightly so. All right, so I think we're going to end it there. When you have a game like that, there isn't much to talk about. We're not going to go and just bag the players and all that.
No, well, next podcast we might have to broadcast from the medical room the way things are going. So
we might need to get in
that's really where it's at.
We might need to get a doctor or a medical professional on the podcast just to sort of explain.
Well, Webber's very good for that. I think, and apologies to him if he's not, but I think he's a physiotherapist, Webber, who regularly explains injuries to us. So maybe we can get Webber on to run through the list and give us a bit more of an idea, because Misso tends to keep most of it to himself, I think.
Yeah, well, I like how they do that thing with Misso, but obviously they're not going to show their hand to the opposition.
No, we don't want them to do that.
And I know Whispering Jack's always critical that we never get told about injuries, but you can see why the club does that. In the end, it's in the end they can't tip their hand to the opposition. So yeah, it's fair enough.
Yep.
So yeah, we might need to get because I still are trying to figure out what a list franc is or whatever it's called from when we had. We've had those players who've suffered that, and now I've got a new one. What did you say it was? The plan...
Plantar fascia.
Plantar fascia. That's why we need a medical professional on the Demonland podcast. But, yep, we'll be back Wednesday week. Why is my... that's why... As we go out with our music. We hopefully back Wednesday week live from Nandi in Fiji. Of course, you won't be in Nandi, you'll be at home. But, let's hope we're celebrating a win.
Absolutely.
All right.
And cheers to Ethan Tremblay too, who... Well, we know at least one person was listening, because he was there in the chat room at the beginning and he's just said goodbye in the chat room at the end. So.
Well, that's right. We did have people listening, because I did see we've got 48 people listening now, and I did see at one stage there were over 60 listening live. And...
Well, thanks to all the Demonlanders out there that did stick with us today, and stick fat with the team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we came on here just as an impromptu thing because I'm heading off for holidays. So thanks for listening. We'll be back in a week and a half's time, hopefully celebrating a win. As always, you can find us. You can listen to us live, usually each week on a Wednesday night at 8:30 at demonland.com/podcast. You can chat with us live during the show. We usually take calls, and I forgot to mention the phone-in number today, but that's all right. We'll be back next week. Go D's.
Go D's.